Morning.
Morning, sir.
Thank you for coming, everyone. We finally met. Very sorry. This week has been very hectic. So, yeah, we can finally meet. And then I guess we still have at least, I still owe you one more meeting or one more delivery uh, for us to talk about eco-criticism, right? But now we're going to focus on postmodernism. It is actually, well, it bears a lot of connection, relation uh, with the previous topic, the one that you discussed with Pulina, which is Purina, which is post-structuralism. Okay, so without further ado, I'm just going to share my slides, and then we're moving on from there. Okay, so postmodernism, right? On your last meeting with Purina, you discussed post-structuralism, and now we have post-modernism. Um, I was assigned to talk to you about this because um, with a consideration that I am uh, actually a part of the cultural studies instead of literature. Although in my bachelor studies, I was a student of literature. Now I focus more on culture studies. And postmodernism uh, is one of the theory, or in this context, we may call it one of the philosophy underlying cultural studies. Uh, how so? We're going to come back to that later. Okay. So postmodernism. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to start with modernity and postmodernism. So, well, yeah, of course, when we talk about modernism, we have to talk about modernity first, right? And after that, on the second part, we will discuss the interconnection between postmodernism and its use in literary studies. And then after that, we will move on to Jean Baudrillard's hyperreality. Okay, so these three topics are our main menu for this morning. Okay, so let's start with the first one, modernity. What's that? What is actually modernity? So modernity comes from the word modern, which again, if we look back, it actually comes from the Latin word modo. Okay, modo meaning just now, recent, present. Okay, just now. So um, at that time, at the time of modernity, which is around the 18th century in Europe, the thoughts, the reasoning, the philosophy behind modernity is something new, something that just come up at that time. That's why they call it modern. So, well, if we look back to it from today's point of view, it's not actually modern, right? Because it was modern in the 18th century, and now we are on the 21st century. So we have 300 years between us. So yeah, I don't think we can be we can use the term modern anymore. Okay, so it is modern in the 18th century. It is just now in the 18th century, but I believe a lot of things, oh, and I mean a lot of things has changed in the course of 300 years. Okay, so that's the meaning of the word modern, modal, just now. It is also philosophically and culturally, also academically, it is synonymous to the Enlightenment. Okay, the Enlightenment, it is also known as the Age of Reason. Again, in the 18th century Europe, in the 1700s, right? So, why do they call it the age of reason is because at that time, reason is the hype. Okay? Reason is the hype. It is something that is valued the most by mostly academician, but also by the general people. Uh, the Enlightenment or the Age of Reason, or in this case, modernity, features a belief that first that reason, okay, reason is humankind's best guide to life. So, if we want to pursue anything, pursue betterment, if you want to make life better, we want to improve things, then we have to rely on reason, logic, uh, arguments, things like that. Okay, and then because of that, it makes science, okay, science the pursuit of reason. Science, above all other human endeavors, can lead humanity to a new promised land. So people are focusing on reason, people are focusing on logic, were focusing on science. So science is the new, well, yeah, maybe we can say the new God. Okay, yeah, it is something that people refer to. It is something that people rely on too. Okay, so that was modernity. That was the age of reason as a, well, some might say as a solution to the dark age, the previous dark age, right? So because they have come out of the dark age by the help of reason and science, they now have come to the age of reason. They are being enlightened. Okay, they have come to the light, coming out from the dark. So that's the brief history of modernity and the Enlightenment. Okay, now if we look at it in a philosophical way, uh, we can say that modernity deals with the concept of the self is a conscious, rational, and knowable entity. So self, individuals, right? All individuals are inherently conscious, rational. So we are rational. We are creatures of reason, and we are knowable, meaning that we can be studied, right? Because we are here, we exist, so we can be studied. Therefore, reality can also be studied, analyzed, and known. Okay, so every single thing that we experience, every single thing that we encounter, the empirical reality, uh, everything can be studied, everything can be analyzed, and everything can be known. Why? Because science and logic and also reason is beyond everything. So with the help of science, with the help of reason, we will be able to know everything. Okay, and that brings us to that brings modernists to a view that the objective and rational truth can be discovered through science. Okay? So again, science is the means. Science is the main tool for us humans to find the objective, the rational truth, right? And thanks to the methodology of science, humans will be able to reach or to obtain truth, right? So again, yeah, science and scientific method, people praise that, people rely on that, people use that to understand the truth. And the yardstick for measuring truth is reason. So if it is if everything can be accepted by reason, then yeah, it's the truth. Okay, so the measurement of truth is reason. As long as something can be reasoned, then it can be considered as the truth. Therefore, truth is demonstrable. Truth is demonstrable. It can be shown, it can be repeated, it can be displayed, it can be exhibited, things like that. Okay, And then the next is that modernist also believes that progress and optimism are the natural results of valuing science and rationality. So if, as I've said before, that modernists believe that the only way to make life better is through science and reasons. So that's why if we value science, if we value reasons, we will have optimism. It's our life will be better. We will progress into something better. Okay, wait. Okay, the last one is that the modernists also believe that language is referential. It represents the perceivable world. So it is pretty much the same with what the structuralists believe, right? Yeah, so modernity, in a sense, is very similar to structuralism, okay, or the structuralist. So it sounds great, right? We believe in science, we believe in reason, we put everything that we believe under the scrutiny of science so that we can find the objective truth, the rational truth, right? The pursuit of truth becomes possible because we have science. So, well, it does sounds great, right? But unfortunately, no. According to Derrida, Jacques Derrida, and other postmodernists, uh, they don't believe so. Okay, they don't believe so. They don't believe about. They don't believe that science and reason alone will be able to bring humans, mankind, to find the objective truth, right? So, um, because they disagree, because they disagree with the modernist point of view, they believe in something else. The postmodernists believe that there is no such thing as objective reality. Okay? There is no such thing as objective reality. All definitions, all depictions of truth are subjective. Uh, Now, this is interesting. Why here the postmodernists never say that truth are subjective? They say that definitions and depictions of truth are subjective because, uh, okay, let's say you find the truth, right? You find the truth and you want to communicate that to someone else. And then your communication to someone else, the message that you send to someone else is your definition and your depiction of the truth. It's not the truth itself, right? So um, as long as you need to, you need a tool, you need a media, you need a medium to communicate the truth, then there's no such thing as objective truth. When you communicate that truth to someone, then your communication, your message will be clouded uh, by you, your perceptions, your way of thinking, your ability to use language. It will be subjective. It will be subjective. It will no longer be objective. Yeah, because what you say, what you send to the audience or to the receptors, to anyone that you are talking to, is not the truth. It is your definition and your depiction of the truth. Okay, so that's what postmodernists believe. So because truth, uh, especially when you say them, when you communicate them, It's not the truth anymore. It's your creation. It's the creation of human minds. Okay, the truth itself is relative. Truth itself is relative, inherently relative, because okay, let's say you perceive the truth. Let's say in an imaginary situation, you perceive the truth, you receive the truth, whatever that is, and then you put that in your mind, right? You put that in your memory, and the truth will be again clouded by your memory, by your point of reference, by your previous experience, by your political view, for example. So there are a lot of things that's happening in a human mind that will, okay, that will cloud any truth. Itu kalau truthnya ada gitu ya. Seandainya, tadi kan saya bilang imaginary scenario. Okay, so postmodernists believe that the truth itself is relative. It depends on the nature and the variety of cultural and social influences in one's life. Okay, so it's going to depend. Uh, it's going to depend on who is keeping that truth. Okay, because our mind, our is influenced by our cultural and social background, maybe also our physical condition, right? And every individual is different. So that's why when we perceive truth, when a lot, maybe some or several different individuals perceive the same truth, then that one truth, that objective truth will no longer become objectives. Okay. Contoh paling sederhana saja. Saya itu pakai kacamata ya. Saya pakai kacamata, saya melihat sesuatu. Lalu ada seseorang di sebelah saya yang juga melihat sesuatu dan matanya normal, dia nggak minus. Saya minus, dan misalnya saya nggak pakai kacamata. Gini, saya dan dia melihat satu objek yang sama. Ya, anggap objek yang sama itu adalah the truth. Right? Kami melihat satu objek yang sama, tapi apa yang kami lihat itu beda. Why? Because in my case, it is clouded by my physical ability to see. Right. So, in that very simple example, we can draw a conclusion. We can conclude that there is no such thing as objective reality. There's no such thing as objective truth. Every single thing has gone through human mind, human limitations, right? So that's the point. So in this case, the postmodernist actually rejects the modernist ideas. So postmodernists rejected modernist concept of one objective reality. Okay, so postmodernists believe that there is no such thing as one objective reality. What is there is subjective reality, or maybe subjective realities, right? Plural, because different individuals have different reality. Okay, so there is no ultimate truth, no ultimate reality. All realities are subjective, and this is important. This is very important. This is the core. This is why I said earlier that postmodernism brings about cultural studies. All realities are subjective, and they are not only subjective, but all of them, or every single one of them, worth to be celebrated. Okay, so that's the point. Because we have no one objective truth. There is no, there is, if there is no, if nothing is true, then nothing is wrong, right? Kalau nggak ada satu yang benar, maka ya nggak ada yang salah. So everything, every single thing is worth to be celebrated, okay, to be acknowledged, to be valued. So that's the point. Now, we come to the basic tenets of postmodernism. So, um, if you want to know what's the basic arguments or what's the basic points of postmodernism, it is these 7 points. Okay, so first, uh, they have a skepticism or rejection of, of grand narratives to explain reality. Yeah, so they reject grand narrative. They don't believe in grand narrative because if again imaginary scenario, if there is such thing as grand narrative, then the narrative would change. It would be clouded by again individual perception. Okay, so there is no such thing as grand narratives, and they also believe that the concept of the self, as opposed to what modernists believe, the concept of the self is actually ever changing. So we don't have and we never have a permanent or a constant concept of the self. It changes across time. It changes across place. Now, uh, the very simple example for this would be if we look at someone's identity. Your identity changes over time, and we're not even talking about years. It could be minutes, right? For example, misal Anda lagi di rumah gitu ya, Anda lagi di rumah, lalu and you have your siblings and you have your parents, ada kemungkinan sikap Anda ya, ketika ada orang tua Anda dan tidak ada orang tua Anda itu kan beda. Your identity will be different, right? Because maybe you believe in a different value. Uh, there's a different value that you hold, and there is another set of values that your parents hold, and they are different. So you have to be one identity when you are alone or when you are with your siblings, and you have to be other identity when in front of your parents, for example. So in that case, an identity, the concept of you, your concept of yourself, may change across time and across place. And again, we're not even talking about a long span of time. Even the shortest time of span, it can change, even in the shortest span of time. Okay, so that's the second. And the third, there is no objective reality. Okay, again, there is no objective reality. What exists are the many subjective interpretations. Okay, again, interpretations of the reality. Because mau nggak mau, yang namanya kenyataan itu kan pasti harus melalui panca indera. Ya kan? Anda akan menerima, menangkap kenyataan itu melalui panca indera, right? So it has to come through some sort of tool, some sort of filter. Right? And this tool and this filter is different from one person to another. Okay, so therefore, any perception, any interpretation of reality has to be subjective. That's the third. Now, the fourth, truth. Okay, so in relation to the third point, the truth as some subjective and perceptible. Oh, sorry, perspectival. Truth as subjective and perspectival. It depends on cultural, social, and personal influences. Ya, jelas ini. I think it's very clear. Again, because reality is any perception of reality will be, at least at the earliest form, it will be influenced by the tools, your senses, how you perceive, and what you use to perceive the reality, right? And number 5, there is no one correct concept of ultimate reality. Okay, no one correct concept of ultimate reality. So every concept is correct because it is subjective again. It is not objective, it is subjective. It is based on, it depends on the subjects. Okay, and therefore, because there is no one correct concept of ultimate reality, there is no meta theory. There is no one theory to explain everything. There is no such thing as the theory of everything. Okay, uh, para ahli fisika, terutama fisika teoretis gitu ya, Hawking, and then almarhum Hawking misalnya, dan kemudian ada siapa ya, saya kok lupa namanya, uh, saya lupa, uh, fisikawan keturunan Jepang yang mengusulkan string theory. Jadi fisikawan-fisikawan teoretis itu masih mencoba mencari satu meta theory, universal theory, the one that they call the theory of everything. Ya. Satu teori yang bisa menjelaskan semuanya. In terms of physics, okay. Nah, well, it might be possible in terms of physics, but our life does not only cannot only be explained by physics. There are other aspects, okay, chemistry, biology, social, economy, cultural. There are many other aspects. Nah, kalau dari satu ini saja, fisika ya, yang paling empiris sebenarnya, gitu. Itu saja sampai sekarang belum nemu yang namanya the single theory, the one theory, the meta theory, the theory of everything. Itu belum ketemu, apalagi yang bisa dibilang tidak terlalu empiris, gitu ya. Seperti ilmu sosial misalnya, ilmu kultural, humaniora dan lain-lain, gitu. So I think for now I can agree with what postmodernists believe, that there is no meta theory to explain text or reality. There is no one single theory. There is no such thing as the theory of everything. Right. Ada teori-teori besar, iya memang, tapi pasti ada pengecualian di sini sana. Itu pasti. Pasti akan ada anomali. Bahkan di fisika pun itu ada anomali. Ya. Dan yang namanya anomali itu tidak bisa dijelaskan. Dan kalau ada anomali, itu berarti tidak ada satu objective truth. Karena ada anomali. Gitu kan. Itu fisika. Apalagi yang non-fisik. Gitu. Okay. So, because there is no meta theory to explain everything, so there is no one correct interpretation of a text. There is no one correct, okay, interpretation of a text. So every interpretation is correct. Atau mungkin it's more proper to say that every interpretation is neither correct or nor wrong. Ya kan, karena tidak ada lagi, karena itu bukan kebenaran gitu. Interpretasi kan bukan kebenaran. Interpretation is not the truth. Interpretation is how you perceive or what you perceive from the truth. It's not the truth itself. So every interpretation is correct in terms of because it depends on every individual. It's very subjective. So it is correct based on that particular individual. But at the same time, it is also wrong because it is not the truth. It's just an interpretation. Okay. Dan kemudian loh, kalau nggak ada kebenaran, kalau nggak ada yang namanya truth, apalagi yang dikejar, nggak ada. Gitu. Makanya the postmodernists, well, I can say that they have a very nihilistic view. They gave up on finding the truth. What they do now is to celebrate different interpretations, different versions of truth. So that's what they do. Now, this is what I've said before. Okay, so because they believe that there is no truth, what exists is only interpretation of truth. So therefore, Brian McHale, one of postmodernists, believe that we have lost the fixed points of reference. Nah, karena truth-nya itu tadi sudah hilang gitu loh. Yang kita punya itu hanya interpretation of truth. Sometimes bahkan lebih buruk. Yang kita punya itu hanya interpretation of interpretation of interpretation of interpretation. Kita menginterpretasikan interpretasi. Bahkan kita sudah kehilangan referensi awalnya. We have lost the point of reference. Truth-nya itu sendiri sudah hilang, nggak ada. Karena yang kita punya sekarang hanya interpretasi. Neither the world nor the self any longer possesses unity, coherence, or meaning. Nggak ada. So we are all decentered. A very nihilistic view. Okay. With that, we move on to the next part, postmodernism and literary studies. Yeah, again, the nihilistic view. Nihilistic view. The postmodernism, also in terms of and in relation to literary studies, is a very nihilistic view. Because why? Because again, they believe that there is no such thing as the meaning. Okay, in terms of literary work, right? Remember that we usually try to find meaning from literary work or from other pursuit. In art, for example, paintings, statues, any work of literature, any work of art, from a song, we are drawn to find the meaning. But postmodernists believe that there is no such thing as the meaning, or especially the correct meaning. There's no such thing as correct meaning of a literary text. Yeah, because we're talking about literary studies, but it also applies to any kind of text. Right? So there's no correct meaning. Meaning develops as a reader interacts with a text. Okay, so meaning develops as a reader interacts with the text. So if you're not interacting with the text, there will be no meaning. Why? Because meaning again is subjective. It depends on you and your interaction with the text. Nah, contoh ya, kalau misalnya Anda ini ada sebuah film misalnya, kita nggak usah ngomong literary text ya, kita coba saja, kita ngomong film deh, sebuah film. Ya. Sebuah film kemudian itu punya makna ketika film tersebut ditonton, ya kan? Dan makna tersebut akan beda dari satu penonton ke penonton lain. Oke, mungkin ada yang mirip ya, mungkin juga ada yang sama, tapi pasti ada. There will be slight or minor differences, itu pasti ada, ya kan? Dari antara penontonnya. Nah, bayangkan kalau misalnya Anda nggak nonton, ya, kemudian Anda diceritain sama teman Anda, ya, kamu udah nonton film ini belum? Waduh, belum, nggak sempat nih, banyak tugas misalnya. Ceritain aja deh. Nah, akhirnya Anda diceritain filmnya. Filmnya itu begini, bla 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 bla. Nah, pertanyaan saya kemudian, yang teman Anda ceritakan itu, is it the film? Or is it the meaning of the film? Or is it the interpretation? Is it your friend's interpretation on the meaning of the film? Ya kan, saya rasa sampai di titik ini jawabannya sudah jelas. Yang Anda dengarkan itu adalah interpretasi teman Anda terhadap makna yang dikandung dari film itu. Ya kan? So very subjective. Nah, Anda kemudian merasa bahwa oh iya oke, terima kasih ya, aku jadi tahu ceritanya kayak gitu. Anda lalu merasa kemudian Anda mengerti makna filmnya. Enggak. Yang Anda mengerti, yang Anda ketahui itu hanya interpretasi teman Anda terhadap makna yang dikandung oleh film itu menurut teman Anda. Oke, ngerti ya? Jadi Anda sendiri, you yourself has lost your reference. Karena Anda sendiri nggak nonton filmnya. Gitu. Okay. Meaning does not reside within the text itself. Anda tahu film itu ada. tapi Anda nggak pernah nonton, ya pasti Anda nggak pernah berinteraksi dengan film itu, ya pasti Anda nggak akan bisa menghasilkan sebuah makna dari film itu. Bahkan Anda nontonnya sekali, Anda nonton 2 kali, 3 kali, dan seterusnya, itu makna yang Anda dapat, the meaning that you perceive, the meaning that you interpret might be different, right? So in that simple case, I think it is clear that, yeah, there's no such thing as one true or one correct meaning. Every meaning of a text is perspectival, every meaning of the text is subjective. Therefore, for each text, ini yang tadi saya bilang gitu ya, there exists a number of interpretation as many as the number of readers. Jadi kalau ada satu film, ada nonton film di bioskop, yang nonton ada katakanlah 50 orang, maka akan ada 50 interpretasi berbeda terhadap film itu. Dan ini poin penting, dan semuanya itu layak dihargai. Okay. So what is the implication of such a nihilistic view? Since there is no objective reality, no point of reference, kan sudah hilang ya tadi. There is virtually no ground for literary theory to occupy. Yeah. Literary interpretation works upon the distinction between surface and the depth. What lies on the text itself, what's on the surface of the text, and the meaning behind or within the text. Interpretasi sastra kan berdasarkan itu. Lah kalau itu nggak ada, gitu ya. If there is no distinction between what is seen in the text and the underlying meaning, if there is no depth, no underlying meaning, there will be nothing to work upon. Okay, literary interpretation will have nothing to work upon if there's no distinction between what is in the text and the meaning. Kan nggak ada hubungannya. Kenapa nggak ada hubungannya? Karena setiap orang yang nonton teksnya itu atau yang baca teksnya itu bisa menghasilkan meaning berbeda-beda, gitu kan? Tergantung mereka. Maka yang kita bisa simpulkan bahwa tidak ada kaitan tentang apa yang muncul di teks dengan apa yang dengan makna yang katanya terkandung di dalamnya. Yang menentukan itu adalah persepsi, bukan teks itu sendiri, tapi persepsi, interaksi antara teks dengan pembaca. However, yes, it is nihilistic, but it is also celebrative. Okay, it is also celebrative. Seperti yang tadi saya bilang, because although there is no truth, no one objective truth, but there are various versions of truth, and each of those various versions is worthy to be celebrated. Therefore, postmodernist critics, when they analyze or when they criticize a work of literature or any cultural text in this matter, they discover postmodernist themes, tendencies, attitudes within the text and explore the implications. Postmodern themes itu apa aja? Basic tenets itu tadi loh, yang ini. Nah, ini. So these are the points that you have to look for in the text, be it literary text or cultural text. And then they also highlight the mixing of literary genres. Okay, they again because they believe the multitude of interpretation, the cornucopia of meaning is important, and it should be celebrated. So they value the mixing of literary genre. There is no one definite genre. It can be mixed. It can be a hybrid. Okay. And again, next they emphasize on intertextuality between one text and another instead of an external reality. Instead of with an external reality. So one text has to be looked upon with its connection to another text, bukan dengan realitas, karena teks itu sendiri kan dipengaruhi oleh produsennya. Gitu. Okay. And number 4, they foreground irony. They bring forth irony, especially in relation to the past. Okay. Irony itu menjadi poin penting dari postmodernist view, karena irony itu menunjukkan inconsistency, right? Dan inconsistency itu menunjukkan atau menjadi bukti bahwa there is no underlying meaning. Kalau ada underlying meaning, ada underlying control, ada grand narratives, then logically there will be no irony. Tidak akan ada inconsistency, gitu kan? Karena semuanya dikendalikan oleh satu struktur utama yang besar, satu narasi utama. Tapi kalau ada irony, logikanya, maka narasi utama itu nggak ada. Gitu. Okay. So they foreground irony. They point out, they highlight irony. And number 5, they also highlight the element of narcissism, where texts focus on and debate their own ends and processes. Ya, irony itu tadi, gitu kan. Jadi inconsistency, again inconsistency in the text. Look out for inconsistency in the text. And number 6, they challenge the distinction between high and low culture. Again, this is what fuel cultural studies. Okay, they don't believe the distinction between high and low culture. Every form of culture, every cultural text is worthy to be celebrated. Okay, I think I'm going to skip this. Saya sudah ditunggu. Satu contoh saja gitu ya. This is probably an airport. You see a man here holding a sign, Godot. Dan ini adalah contoh dari intertextuality. So in order for you to understand this image, you have to understand that there's a drama entitled Waiting for Godot, right? Anda harusnya sudah pernah dengar. Ya. As a student of literature, Anda harusnya sudah pernah dengar Waiting for Godot. Nah, untuk memahami teks ini kan juga teks ya. This image is also a text. In order to understand this image, you have to understand that there is another text called Waiting for Godot, right? Waiting for Godot. Nah, ini kayak orang yang lagi nunggu di bandara, nunggu orang yang namanya Godot. Okay, so that's intertextuality. So which characteristic? Intertextuality. Okay. And the last part, hyperreality, simulacra and simulation. So it began with the notion, the loss of the real. Okay, the loss of the real. Tadi saya sudah bilang bahwa kebenaran ketika itu dipersepsi, itu pasti akan dipengaruhi oleh siapa yang mempersepsinya dan alat apa yang dipakai. Gitu kan. Ada pakai mata tiap orang beda-beda. Gitu kan. Jadi ketika itu disimpan dalam memori, ketika kenyataan itu disimpan dalam memori, apa yang disimpan itu sudah berbeda, itu sudah bukan kenyataan. It's not the truth, it's not the real. It's your perception of the real. Okay, so according to Jean Baudrillard, in contemporary life, the prevalent influence of images from film, TV, and advertising, apalagi sekarang gitu ya, dengan online platform ada banyak sekali dan nggak terbatas, itu saya bisa bilang nggak terbatas, has led to a loss of the distinction between real and imagined, between the reality and illusion, between the surface and the depth. There is no more distinction. You don't know. We don't know which one is true and which one is not. Right? Artis-artis tuh misalnya, gitu kan. Banyak orang bilang, oh itu settingan itu. But how do you know? Mungkin saja itu settingan, mungkin saja juga bukan gitu. Ya kan? So we have lost the distinction between the real and the imagined, the reality and illusion, surface and the depth. Postmodernism, therefore, is signified with the collapse of the distinction between what is real and what is simulated. Okay. What is real and what is simulated. Apalagi sekarang misalnya dengan uh, banyaknya orang-orang flexing gitu ya. Banyaknya yang flexing. So uh, we no longer able to differentiate between what is real and what is simulated. Right? So Baudrillard say that everything is a model or an image. All is only a surface without depth. Jadi semuanya itu hanya teks tanpa ada reference ke sebuah meaning atau grand meaning or grand narrative. Semuanya itu hanya model, hanya imaji, gitu ya, image, hanya gambar saja. Realitinya nggak ada. Gitu ya. A sign does not, atau saya mungkin pakai kata no longer. Ya. A sign no longer represents a reality, but merely other signs. Jadi ketika tadi misalnya contoh ketika Anda diceritain tentang sebuah film oleh teman Anda yang Anda terima, the thing that you perceive is not the movie. It's the perception of your friend, right? It's not the movie itself, it's the perception of your friend. So the sign, hal yang Anda terima itu tadi, the sign that you perceive, does not represent a reality. That sign represents to other sign. Lebih parahnya lagi ya, lebih parahnya lagi itu film. It's not reality, it's a film. The film itself is a sign, right? So you have sign that refers to other sign, that refers to a different sign, that refers to others, another set of signs. So sign, 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 sign. None of them represent reality. The reality itself has been lost. Thus, there is no such thing as representation. Nggak ada representasi, yang ada hanya simulasi. Ya. Karena nggak ada lagi point of reference. Kalau tidak ada point of reference, there is no representation. Sebuah penanda, tanda, itu tidak merepresentasikan apa-apa. Dia hanya mensimulasikan tanda lain. Jadi tanda, mensimulasikan tanda, menyimulasikan tanda, menyimulasikan tanda. Tidak ada satupun dari tanda itu yang merepresentasikan reality, kenyataan, truth, kebenaran. Okay. Now, with that in mind, Baudrillard proposes the four-stage model of the loss of reality. Ya kan? Nah, reality yang tadi sudah hilang kan ya. Dan ada 4 tahap di situ yang terlibat di situ. The first, this is in the very beginning, the sign represents a reality, jadi masih ada hubungannya. Lalu kemudian the sign distorts the reality behind it. Ini sudah mulai hilang, gitu ya. Hubungannya sudah mulai kabur. Ya. The sign then disguises the fact that there is no corresponding reality beneath. Nah, ini kan sudah berubah ya. Di sini sudah berubah. The sign no longer represents reality karena sudah ada distorsi di situ. Nah, menariknya di sini, di tahap ketiga, padahal di sini kan hubungannya sudah hilang ya. Tahap kedua ini sudah hilang. Gitu. Di tahap ketiga, the sign disguises the fact that there is no corresponding reality underneath. The sign itu menutup-nutupi ketiadaan hubungan di ini tadi. Jadi poin 3 itu menutupi apa yang terjadi di poin 2. So the sign disguises as if they represent reality, while in reality they represent nothing. There's no representation. They only simulate other signs. Okay. Until it comes to a point ini diterima, gitu ya. Ini dianggap sebagai general truth. We finally come to a time, to a stage where the sign bears no relation to any reality at all. Jadi nggak ada sama sekali. What we have is hyperreality. Hyperreality. Reality itu kan tersusun dari representations, right? Ini representation di tahap ini. tahap 1. Tapi di tahap sini, there is no such thing as representation, there is no such thing as reality. Yang ada hanya simulation. Therefore, what we have is only hyper reality. Okay? Because there is no representation, there is only simulation. Contoh, ini yang cewek-cewek pasti tahu gitu ya, atau cowok-cowok yang army juga pasti tahu. Ini orang siapa sih? EV ya ini EV. Based on Baudrillard's four-stage model, in which stage would you put this image? Nah, ini PR-nya, ya. Ini pertimbangkan. Atau mungkin orang teman-teman yang nggak tahu ini siapa, ya Anda bisa pakai any example, any pictures on Instagram, any photo of someone in Instagram, right? And then you can think in which stage would you put this image. Anda sudah dibagi jadi kelompok kan ya? Sudah dibagi jadi kelompok, jadi silakan diskusikan dengan kelompok Anda. This image or any photo in Instagram. In which four-stage model would you put this image or any photo in Instagram and why? Okay, so that's the question. Okay, so what to do in the study of hyperreality? First thing is you have to identify the signs that appear in the text. Okay, the text itself is a sign. It's a major sign, but you still have to identify what are the part of the signs, the signs that appear in the text. Ya, nggak semuanya dari sebuah teks itu bisa dianggap sebagai signs. Ada yang cuma filler misalnya. Ada yang bahkan tidak merefer ke apa-apa gitu ya. Signs itu pasti akan refer. Refer to what? Refer to other signs. Ya. So find the signs, or maybe find the major signs that relates to major theme of the text. Ya. And then examine and highlight the presence, or rather the absence of a point of reference for those signs. Jadi coba cari tahu ini ada point reference-nya enggak? Do they represent something, or do these signs merely simulate other signs? Okay, so that's a very important question. Do they represent reality, or do they simply simulate other signs? Now, once you do that, the next step is to elaborate the stage in which the text resides within Baudrillard's four-stage model. Dia ada di stage keberapa? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's what you have to do if you are studying something from a hyperreality point of view, hyperreality perspective, or using the theory of hyperreality to analyze a text, any text, not just literary text, but also cultural text, well, any text. Okay. References. Voila, that's all. Okay. So yeah, so that's basically postmodernism and hyperreality. Basically, I hope at this point it's clear enough. Do you have any question?
Pak, saya mau tanya.
Ya, silakan.
Untuk tugasnya tadi itu bentuknya dalam bentuk PPT atau Word atau apa, Pak?
Good question. PPT. Kan setiap kelompok ada tugas untuk presentasi ya. Sudah dibagi belum siapa yang presentasi dan siapa yang enggak? Yang giliran presentasi untuk postmodern sudah dibagi belum? Halo?
Sudah, Pak.
Sudah kan ya? Nah, oke. Tapi gini, semua kelompok itu wajib menjawab pertanyaan itu tadi ya, dalam bentuk PowerPoint. Nah, nanti kelompok yang giliran presentasi itu wajib mempresentasikan. Wajib mempresentasikan. Oke, kapan? Nah, karena kita tidak punya waktu lagi, karena minggu depan sudah ujian, maka tolong presentasinya direkam. Anda presentasi, lalu rekam presentasinya in the form of video, dan videonya itulah yang akan saya nilai. Ya, dan silakan, ya itu tadi, silakan buat video, lalu kemudian unggah di mana saja boleh, di YouTube boleh, di Google Drive juga boleh, silakan. Lalu linknya bisa dikumpulkan ke saya langsung saja. Oke, nanti video tersebut akan saya unggah di aula supaya teman-teman yang lain juga bisa melihat dan mungkin bisa mendapat manfaat dari situ. Oke. So that's what you should do. Saya akan buatkan submission box di aula di iPad untuk semua kelompok mengumpulkan PPT-nya. Ya, tapi kelompok yang giliran presentasi itu wajib membuat video presentasi dan kemudian mengumpulkannya langsung ke saya. Silakan mengunggahnya dimanapun, lalu linknya dikumpulkan diberikan ke saya. Is that clear? Deadline-nya kapan? Sampai UTS deh, sampai akhir UTS minggu kedua. Kalau Anda mau jadikan itu bahan untuk belajar, ya silakan dibuat sebelum UTS-nya. Tapi kalau Anda mau mengutamakan UTS-nya, UTS ini dan UTS yang mata kuliah yang lain, silakan ditunda sampai ke hari terakhir, minggu terakhir UTS. Oke, supaya tidak memberatkan. So it's up to you. Any other question? Enggak ada? Oke. Kalau tidak ada, saya anggap tidak ada gitu ya. Tapi kalau nanti Anda punya pertanyaan, Anda bisa japri saya langsung. Kalau yang belum punya nomor saya, ada beberapa yang punya nomor saya sudah harusnya gitu ya. Jadi Anda bisa tanya-tanya. Itu saja. I think that's it for today. I'm going to call it a day. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you very much for coming. I hope that you enjoy the presentation and I hope you get something useful out of it. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Have a
Thank
good day.
you.
Thank you, sir. Stay healthy.
Stay healthy to you too.